It was a week for the dreaded black and white lion mark on the New Japan website, and it led to a week of seismic change. The most popular wrestler from the most popular wrestling company is leaving. Tetsuya Naito will finish up with New Japan Pro Wrestling in less than 3 weeks. His most loyal ally, Bushi, is following him right out the door, and it turns out there was fire to the smoke regarding Jeff Cobb. The tag team titles are vacated. He'll be leaving as soon as tomorrow. Departures, Windy City Riot, Dontaku, Resurgence Ruse. There is no time to waste. Let's get right to it. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it has been one of the bigger weeks as far as news goes in quite a long time. I can't really think of anything bigger behind-the-scenes news maybe since Kazuchika Okada's departure, really, is what it reminds me of in that way. And as we sit here right now, we have learned an awful lot since the Windy City Riot show, which is what we thought we were going to be talking about this week, and we will. We're going to get to all that. But it seems a little pithy now to talk about in-ring stuff and matches and things when we're looking at the departure of Tetsuya Naito. And it turns out that he had been a freelancer and he'd been working without a contract. And to just about everybody's surprise, this thing has come to a point where they could not come to an agreement and they have mutually agreed to part ways. This is coming from a statement that was left on the NJPW 1972 website. He will be working through May 4th, the Dontaku two-night event in Fukuoka that goes on as part of Golden Week each year. Mm-hmm. And that will be the end of Tetsuya Naito and Bushi, as it turns out, in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, Jeremy, when this thing came out, I mean, we had joked about all the freelance stuff and things. There have been some people who say, I knew it was coming. No, they didn't. Those people are lying to themselves or to you. This is one of those things where even if he didn't have a deal, it's one that very few people thought he would actually leave. And this is the only company he's really called home. Mm-hmm. He did train in Animal Hamaguchi's gym. He did do that before he was in the dojo. But he went right to Noge Dojo, went through the New Japan system. Yes, he worked for CMLL. I'll get to that in a second because the irony on that's thick. But that was all part of his New Japan development. This is the only home he's really ever had in pro wrestling. So don't believe people when they say they knew he was going to leave. Just about everybody figured that this would get worked out. Even if he was a freelancer, there was a lot of supposition that was all just an April Fool's joke, although it wasn't. So it is pretty shocking that this guy who has been calling New Japan home is the most popular person there is now going to walk away. And I figured we would see some sort of retirement, whether it was self-imposed or doctor-imposed. I did not imagine Tetsuya Naito walking away from New Japan.
I kind of thought that if it were going to happen, it was going to happen something like this. You know, just like one day out of the blue, kind of the Goodwill Hunting, you know, when Ben Affleck at the very end, spoiler alert for a 30-year-old film, everybody. But when Ben Affleck goes to the door of Matt Damon's character to see that the guy's gone, and you just look around and realize, he did it. He took off. He's chasing another dream. I'm okay with it. You know, like there's the shock. There's the shock of Jeff Cobb leaving. There's the shock of Bushi leaving. And there's the shock of Naito leaving. I was asleep and I've got more notifications than I've gotten quite a long time over the middle of the night over this one, which was like, oh, something's going on. And, you know, wake up an hour before I usually get up. And, you know, the week has just kind of been like that. There was that initial moment of it. And then the rest of it just kind of like letting it settle in and see what happens. We got a New Japan show tomorrow night that's airing live in prime time on the West Coast and like 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast. So that's going to be fun for people. But, okay. A lot of people are talking about this as the end of an era, right? You know, like this is the last bastion of this generation with the Tanahashi retirement. And I don't think that's right. I think the end of this era was actually when Ibushi damaged his shoulder in that G1 match against Okada. And it was really just like a wake-up call that the cost of the strong style movement over the 2010s. And then Okada left, Ospreay took off, Tanahashi wasn't what he was, and Naito wasn't either. And if you think about the Naito path and his story in New Japan, there was a lot to do with the Intercontinental title, his love-hate relationship with that, and his quest for the world title. And in like 2020, 2021, 2022, he had both titles. He had everything he needed. Like his story essentially ended for all intents and purposes with the great big Naito quest. And so if you think about this run after Sonata, the Sonata ended up taking this title. Everything that's happened with Naito ever since then has been a victory lap. It's essentially been like, you're getting the best hits of Naito. You're getting another world title. He's in these positions of prominence. Because he's still kind of Naito. He's in the G1. He's not winning it, but he's into the post play. And then, there's a Hikuleo, and he's eliminated in that one. And then the next year, he's not really even in post play. Like the gradual downturn for the creative differences that they've had, where they have to focus on new talent. They have to focus on younger guys.
Yeah, the story, I think, for Naito truly ended when he finally got the roll call after winning the title at Wrestle Kingdom. That was the time when he got the confetti and the ribbons and
the ultimate victory lap.
It was final victory. He had beaten the game, so to speak, on that one. And last week, before we knew that he was leaving, I talked to Chris Samsa, so did you. I think this is actually when you had blinked out for a little bit and you were having your technical difficulties. But I just said, do we have to adjust to a world now where Naito is a guy in a trios match leading to someone else's grudge match or title match on a big show? Is he a guy in the preview tags now instead of the guy the preview tag is about? Because he had been at the center of everything. And we don't really know the reasons. I agree with you in that his story had been told. Anything else is just kind of hanging on. But you couldn't really blame New Japan or Naito for wanting to hang on, because I saw just how the gulf between he and everybody else as far as popularity goes. We don't know why. And it's almost certainly a combination of a lot of things. It could be the creative direction that he wasn't thrilled with, but I don't think that's the only reason he would walk away. It doesn't strike me that money would be the reason. Here's why I don't think money is necessarily the only reason. No one else can give him a raise. New Japan is the company in the best position to pay him. Noah has a little bit of money, a little bit, not. I know New Japan isn't exactly swimming in it right now. It's been a little bit of hard times, and Bushi Road isn't exactly in great shape.
Is he taking a Muto route?
Well, we'll get to all that, but All Japan, really can't afford him on any kind of full. So if it were money, he'd just stay. I wonder if it was just a thing where he couldn't get maybe the raise he wanted, and then in exchange, maybe he says, well, how about I work a few fewer dates? And New Japan is like, well, we got to have you. You're the guy that sells the tickets and drives the merch. And then after a while, they just said, well, I don't want to work that many for that money. And then it's 40 things instead of one.
Yeah. It's absolutely creative differences. It's the thing in the United States that they don't talk about in terms of like contractual stuff, where it's like we had creative differences and everybody moved on. This is like fine detail stuff. The dates and the money they couldn't come to terms on, and I get it.
Yeah. And so, the question just becomes what's next for a lot of different things. He's worked with Noah in the past. He's done crossovers with them, the Muta retirement show, but it's been special occasions. Perhaps he can come in as a name on big shows or in build-ups to big shows rather than full-time. And I'm thinking more like a Roman Reigns than a Cody Rhodes, and that you don't see him all the time, but he appears to set up, a few shows to set up a big show, that type of thing.
He can show up in November and still do a match in Tokyo Dome this year.
Yeah, and DDT, same thing, like the one-offs, because Kota Ibushi does those, all that. That could be a possibility for him, where he just becomes, or the promotions that Minoru Suzuki works for, where he does one-offs and special. You know, he's at every small group's biggest show of the year.
As long as he is going to be able to go to his Hiroshima Carps games, he'll be a happy camper.
You know, he still, I heard that thing that like he has to go to carp games and stuff like that, but he travels during the year an awful lot. He's not,
but he wants to make sure he's able to hear him or listen to him or keep up.
I understand. No, as a Cub fan, I get it. Well, it's interesting. Nakamura is also out there, and he's leaving WWE, it looks like. So while both of them are well past their primes, they are two names who could really sell tickets when brought into special attractions. And Noah just seems most likely because they both work with him. But you can't rule out any of those smaller groups who can pony up a big appearance fee for one time. It sounds like it's likely Bushi will kind of follow with him. Bushi's an interesting case because he was Naito's ally before Naito even went heel, when he was still Stardust Naito. If you go back about 12 years or so and look at Naito in his big matches, Bushi, babyface Bushi, is still in his corner, even back then. Bushi was the first person to join LIJ when he came back from Mexico. And he's been the ride or die, the most loyal guy ever since. And then now he seems comfortable with the idea of walking out and reducing his schedule, perhaps, maybe working for some other people on a limited basis and running his fried chicken restaurant. The man does own a business. He's got other irons in the fire, so to speak. So it just seems startling because these guys have just been pillars. And I know Bushi hasn't been at the top of the division, but it feels weird without him, doesn't it, a little bit?
A little bit. He's like the ultimate ride or die for Naito. Like, Naito's not like, Naito's like, he's coming with me. And Bushi's like, I'm right here with you, boss.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, where are we going, bro?
Where we're going.
Yeah.
That's loyalty. Do you remember, like, around New Beginning in Osaka, there was an entrance with the majority of LIJ, and Yota Tsuji was the last one out. And I thought it was really weird at the time.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, it's just a thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, well, that was super like
Tsuji was a preview tag, and Tsuji was the guy in the big match they were building to.
It still, like, it just felt like a little, like, a minor shift in the wind. You know what I mean? Like, just, there are a lot of times where you just sometimes, like, Naito's still the last guy out. He's like the elder statesman of the entire, like, you know. Yeah, what I mean?
You're right, and that's a fair point. What I thought they were doing was directing us toward what I talked to Chris about. Is that, are they getting us used to the idea,
right,
that Naito is not the focal point all the time? And I think that's probably where they were headed. I think they were going to move to a model where if Shingo has the big match, he's the guy that comes out last. If you know how they do with Tanahashi, if he's in a match, like they introduce Tanahashi and they play a few seconds of Go Ace, even if somebody else's music has been playing for the babyface's entrance, they do that. I thought maybe that's what they could do with Naito there. You know, like if it's building to a global title match, then it's Tsuji's music that plays, but then they introduce Tetsuya Naito and you hear just a little bit of that Stardust theme. You know, I thought that's where they were headed. As it turns out, he was headed right out the door, just, you know, ready to on to other passes.
That Bushi is a more valuable free agent in Japan than Naito at this point?
No.
Like, just
wait, say that one more time. Bushi, you're talking?
Yeah. Like, for what you're going to get, for what you're paying for, and what he's able to do in the ring, is there an argument to say that Bushi is a more valuable talent for Japanese promotions, also being a New Japan veteran, going forward? No,
Naito moves the needle on ticket sales. Okay, Bushi's not going to do that.
It was Bushi can probably work.
Oh, sure,
200 nights a year. I think if you're going to get Naito, you're getting 5 good nights out of him a year. And so that was the equation that I was kind of looking at. Was just like, there's a value to the utility of Bushi that might actually in the long run be more valuable than Naito getting 5 matches and you're not even sure what kind of Naito you're going to get in those matches.
Well, I think you are sure is you're going to get a very diminished Naito physically.
Yes.
That's like that toothpaste is out of the tube. He's not going to heal up and come back strong.
There are people that are going to think that if he just doesn't wrestle for like 3 months, he's going to come back and he is just going to be in great shape. That all he's got to do is just ice it up and right. And that's not the case. And that's why I was kind of asking about the Bushi thing in terms of like Bushi could maybe go like 5-10 more years at the rate that he's going at. And
he could, and I like Bushi, but how many tickets does he actually sell?
I don't know, but the volume at this point, I'm saying like from this point on, like Naito might want to wrestle, but his shelf life is less than 20 matches, really. I feel like.
Big ones, yeah. That's why I think they're probably going to use him sparingly when they do use him, and he'll pick and choose. Is my guess. I don't see him joining anybody full time, and nobody.
He's a big match program guy. He comes in for a program with a big guy. You do a video, a couple little Naito things, and then the big match.
Yeah. We have some comments that we want to get to, and hello to Venkin and Jeremy Orr. We're glad you're here. Jeremy Collin is here. We're glad you guys are here. We need the A troops today to talk about all this stuff, and thankfully
I want to hear what you guys have to say about all this.
Certainly do. And Venkin mentions all the factions taking these losses in the last 2 years is tough. Think about this: for Bushi Road, which owns Stardom and New Japan, in 2 months, Bushi Road could be looking at losing Tetsuya Naito, Jeff Cobb, Bushi, Mina Shirakawa, Mayu Iwatani, and Tam Nakano.
You sent me this list via text, and I'm like, I don't have anything to say to that. That sucks.
Yikes! That is heavy duty, and you're just looking at it, and it is interesting. And Jeremy mentions I'm getting worried about these contract situations. He says, It's hard to say. The Naito thing, it might have just been that they could not come to an agreement on money and dates. Like they just said, well, we'll pay him this money if you work a full schedule, but we won't pay you this money to not work a full schedule. Fernando's here. Good to see you, Fernando. Glad you're here. And then Jeremy's asking, why would Naito just not retire with his health? That's the question you'd have to ask him. He still enjoys it is the thing. And I think he just wants to do it. The issue becomes, though, for New Japan and Bushi Road, it's forcing their hand. On the Stardom side, they have the depth. And I think this year you're going to absolutely see some people really step up. It's forcing New Japan's hand now. We already knew that this year, we talked about it all year long, that this is a year to set up the next generation. There's no choice now. There's no choice now. And I think they thought they were at least going to have a little bit of a Naito cushion in there, but now it's definitely the group. The question is, Jeremy, now for me, next question anyway, there's a bunch of questions. LIJ, what happens with LIJ? Is there really an LIJ without Naito and Bushi? Or what I was thinking is maybe this happens more like Suzuki-gun. When Suzuki left New Japan, they kind of split up. Not any kind of a turn or anybody, but they all took the last group picture and they all went off and did their own thing. I have been advocating for Shingo Takagi to peacefully, I didn't want him to turn on LIJ because I thought his value is still as a babyface. Being a guy that could break away and just saying, look, I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to do this myself and start his own faction. Tsuji might be a faction leader. But does it have to be? Does it have to be LIJ without Naito? This could be the opportunity to start something new with those guys and make it more like Suzuki-gun and not like some Bullet Club explosion.
Right now, TMDK and House of Torture are probably the two most stable factions in all of Bullet Club, or in all of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Bullet Club's got stuff going on. Hontai feels like there's conflict within Hontai. Nobody can exist. Just 4 guys doesn't even have 4 of its guys healthy. And then you got LIJ. I think LIJ is intrinsically tied to Naito.
Yeah, feels like it.
And with Evil and Sonata clearly aligned into a new faction, It really makes Hiromu like the senior member of LIJ, and I don't really know if that works. I don't really know if that vibe is the right vibe going forward. And
Yeah.
so you got Yota Tsuji, you got Hiromu, and you got Shingo, and you got a couple of guys and that kind of filter in and out, but that's really it.
Yeah, Teton and all that. Yeah.
Right. I think this is an opportunity. By Wrestle Kingdom this next year, we should have like brand new factions all over the place. The next 8 months should just be like, let's figure this all out, and let's make Taichi a bad guy again. Let's make Shingo, let's mess around with him. Let's get creative.
Mm-hmm.
You can do stuff with this and really go wild. And I think some boldness is required.
Colin is asking here, do you think New Japan will continue to sign gaijins from now on, meaning foreign wrestlers?
Yes.
Yes. I think it is an intrinsic part of Japanese pro wrestling to bring in foreign guys for the native wrestlers. And it's always been. Here's the thing, too. Guys coming in and out has always been the case. Always been the case. There are exceptions like Stan Hansen. There are exceptions like the Funks. There are exceptions like Zach. But over the history, just look. I mean, the guys would come in for tours and then go back home and then work for American promotions all the time. Bruiser Brody wasn't full-time with All Japan. He worked in America and all that. Even Stan did some. But if you also look at those other results and you look at G1s and Champions Carnivals, there are all kinds of guys that were there for a year and then weren't anymore. And that has been the way this has gone forever. And yes, there will be guys, and they're going to be short-term. It's going to be rare that guys just plant roots in Japan the way Zach has. And remember, for a while, it looked like Kenny got dual citizenship, but he didn't know AEW was going to exist. So the business always changes, but they will always want to have that dynamic of the foreign wrestler against the native wrestler. That is such a staple of Japanese wrestling. It's going nowhere. It's just a matter of the guys will change.
New Japan right now has 12 guys that they need to make sure they have on contracts that are longer than a year, like 2 or 3 years, with escalators each year to reflect the market value of what they have. They need to prioritize those young guys. I'm talking about the Yuyas. I'm talking about the Yota, Kosei Fujita, those guys. Shota Umino even. Like, hate on Shota Umino all you want. They've invested too much in him now to cut bait. Unless he really just messes up personally and professionally in such a way which he hasn't done. So, and so all these other guys are getting these 1-year contracts, and the Gabe Kids and the Zack Sabre Jr.'s and the David Finleys, they're here because they want to be here. They're here because the money isn't as important as the idea of working in New Japan Pro Wrestling and having that opportunity. And as long as that happens, you have an opportunity to thrive. But there's always new talent coming up. Right? We weren't talking about Kevin Knight and Gabe Kidd and David Finley 2 years ago at the level that we were talking about now. They were either on their way up, or we were having conversations about their potential of what we think they can do. Mm-hmm. But we weren't having the conversations they were having right now. And in 2 years, there's going to be 3 or 4 other guys, like potentially this Zane J guy could really turn around and be something from the strong thing that's coming over from America. It just happened, and that's just the business. And AEW and WWE, they're going to swallow these guys up. If there's a guy that they want, and we're talking about that, if there's a guy that they want, they're going to come in and take it, and there's nothing anybody can do, because it is a business predicated on the talent of individuals, and those individuals are going to need to make money. And there are other places that if you apply your craft here, like people don't want to call it a feeder system, but in a lot of ways for the guys in talent, it is a feeder system for the Western for the Western. It's been going on for years. AJ, right? AJ Styles. Blueprint.
Yeah. And War Hero 99 is asking, is LIJ breaking up? Well, there have been no announcements, and we don't know that. We were supposing that they might break up the way Suzuki-gun did, but we don't know. It's also tempting for New Japan to try to hold on to it in some way because it is their biggest merchandise seller, and it is difficult to give that up. But I agree with you, Jeremy. I think it is the right time. And he mentions it too, by the way. The main faction in Mexico isn't there anymore. Like the original LIJ and CMLL isn't what it was, certainly.
It's a 10-year-old faction, you know? It's like we're talking about people and things that just...
Andrade El Idolo was one of the originals, for the love of God. But yeah, when he was La Sombra. We're going to talk about that. But it is a thing where I know it's tempting for them to try to keep it because they do sell a lot of gear, but without Naito in it, what is it really? And so I agree with you, Jeremy. I think it might be time to shake it up and start something new. And then Venkin says, can we make a list of people who went from New Japan to AEW or WWE? Going to be the nature of the beast. You could do that you could do the same thing with AEW or with WCW and WWF from back in the day. I mean, a lot of Hulk Hogan, there's a name for you, that went from New Japan to the WWF. And he was working for the AWA too at the time. But that Vader, Big Van Vader, started in New Japan. They built him up. WCW saw him, thought, oh, we'd like one of those, and he was gone. And he came back for appearances and special.
I was watching that Dark Side of the Ring, and Ludwig Borga was in WWF and then went to New Japan. So sometimes you're picked up after your turn in the big show.
Killer Khan became a huge star in the WWF after his both after and before, in between his big runs in Japan.
So talk about this. Do you want to talk about Jeff Cobb?
Yeah, in a second. The only other thing I wanted to mention was the irony of all this. 10 years ago today, Jeremy, and I mean today, 10 years ago on this very day, Naito was on his way to Mexico. And what I mean by that is, this is absolutely serious. On this day 10 years ago, he had wrestled his final match on the 16th. So April 16th, 2015, he and Tanahashi teamed up to defeat ACH and Matt Sydal at Ring of Honor's Global War in Toronto. And he did not go back to Japan with the rest of the group. He flew, and on the 24th, he was in Mexico City at Arena Mexico, becoming Ingobernables. So this is exactly 10 years from when he started changing from Stardust Naito to the version of himself that made him the biggest star in the company and one of the most popular stars the company's ever had. That process began exactly 10 years ago. I just thought the irony of that was pretty thick.
Didn't really feel like 4 or 5 years for him to like reach his goals from there. Like it felt like it took longer, but it really, they were able to tell that story in a more compacted period of time than I originally thought.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big star the second he got back as a heel because he started doing the whole. It's funny now because he was
the anti-hero, the counterculture, like he was the hero for the people who didn't want a hero.
He was hated when he first came back because they leaned into that whole frustration with him. So when he came out and took forever to get his gear off, that drove the people insane. They hated him. And it had to be Tanahashi saving the Intercontinental title from the guy. And believe me, when Tanahashi put the Boston Crab, or it was the Cloverleaf, he had done the Crab, and then he did the Cloverleaf, and Naito submitted at Dominion that year, the place went insane that finally somebody had knocked this guy off his damn pedestal. The hell with this guy. It took another good year after that for people started to come around to Naito. And Naito never turned babyface.
Right.
It just kind of evolved that way into a heel people liked.
The anti-hero. He's always been the anti-hero.
Yeah.
He's never been like the White Knight. He's never been Terry Bam Bam Gordy and Dr.
Well, bigger stars than in America, boy. Terry Gordy was a pretty big star in world class, but I get your point. They became Japanese legends after their careers here, and during their careers here in the United States. Certainly, Steve Williams was a big star in Mid-South while he was wrestling for.
That's my train of thought. Where were we?
We were just talking about how Naito, his journey through all this. And yeah.
If this is it for Naito in New Japan, most people are not going to get the flowers and the run that he has had. And frankly speaking, he's not retiring, so he's not going to get a retirement ceremony. Him leaving right now with very quietly in the shadow of Tanahashi kind of makes sense for his character as well. And it's something that he can potentially revisit for a storyline purpose going forward if he wanted to, I don't know, return in a conflicting way or whatever. Like, there's meat on this to do something with it in the future. Mm-hmm. But for the now, I'm okay. I am okay with Naito going off into the sunset somewhere else and wrestling matches and telling stories there, because I do honestly feel like we have exhausted all that we can do with Naito, and there is a sense of being nice about what he is doing in the ring, because the honest fact is he's hurting. He's in a lot of pain, and he loves to wrestle, but the match quality is not what it's been. And those matches with the Bushi and Naito and Jay White and Okada and Tanahashi and Omega, all those years back, they take there's a price to pay, and we're watching it now.
And yeah, you're right. And the part of this, though, I hope we helped Jeremy with this question about the contract situations. I think you did a good job of explaining how these guys are on 1-year deals, and it's a good way to transition into Jeff Cobb, because these people that are leaving, Naito couldn't come to an agreement. Cobb and Mina Shirakawa are basically kind of in the same place in their careers. They're getting a little bit older. We think Mina is probably in her late 30s. Cobb is in his 40s. Mm-hmm. North America is calling. They pay more. It's time to cash in, and it really is time to cash in for those guys. Cobb and Mina both have lives in Japan. Cobb lives in Fukuoka, and he was supposed to, we found out originally, was going to main event Dontaku in his adopted hometown, Fukuoka, where he lives now. And he was going to challenge Hiroki Goto. But wanted to take that money because, I'm kind of amazed that he hasn't signed full-time with AEW or WWE already. The talent is such that I thought they would have a hard time keeping their hands off of him. As it turns out, he's wanted to stay in Japan a little bit longer, but 40-some years old, a 3 or 4 year deal at that kind of money, you got to think real hard about making that little post-retirement nest egg. Mm-hmm. Mina, the same thing, might be her opportunity to come out here in the United States, make some money. So with Cobb, it seems to me, Jeremy, that there was a bit of a plan in place, and maybe it wasn't written in ink, but he was going to be there through May because he was going to wrestle Goto. Mm-hmm. Then he had the tag team titles. He was going to need to drop those eventually. Mm-hmm. And then I imagine that there was going to be a later on kinship match with Tanahashi, because Tanahashi's doing that match with everybody. Somewhere in there, that timetable got moved way up. Mm-hmm. And because all of a sudden they just said, well, none of that stuff's happening, vacating the titles, Callum Newman is getting his shot, his tag team partner is getting his shot. Mess. And then they just said, and we're squeezing in this last match with Tanahashi that we wanted to do, the kinship match. Now, tomorrow our time, but it's Saturday morning at 11:30, a matinee show at Korakuen Hall. By the way, I looked that up. Rise, the tiny little promotion Rise, has the prime time slot at Korakuen Hall on that Saturday. So New Japan will clear out so that Rise can have a show. Go figure. But that's going to take place here in the United States. We can watch it Friday night. Everybody else, a little bit different time, a little further ahead. But it does seem that WWE moved his start time way the hell up, because he had a lot to do in New Japan, and now it ain't happening, except for the one thing, which is that match with Tanahashi. And War Hero says Triple H drives a hard bargain. Yeah, you wonder. And they just said, Fernando asked,
I have a theory about all of this.
Well, do you see Jeff Cobb appearing at Mania or Raw after Mania? He could. We don't know. it could be that they just want him there. The Raw after Mania feels a little more likely to me than Mania, but he absolutely could. The timing of it is almost certainly not coincidence.
The Rock Rubik's Cube image. You know what I'm talking about? This is what it was about. It was about Cobb.
Okay.
Straight up. It was all about Cobb. It was...
I don't know what you're talking about with the Rubik's Cube image.
Okay, so on social media, Dwayne The Rock Johnson was wearing a Raglan baseball tee with the New Japan logo on it.
Yeah, I did see that.
And he was looking at a Rubik's Cube as if he was figuring out moves. Like, you know, the ghetto style, like, I'm 1,000 moves ahead of you kind of thing. Well, immediately after, Jeff Cobb gave the notice that it was time for him to go. I believe that Jeff Cobb had a working arrangement with New Japan as a freelancer to do these things, and he had a handshake deal of a certain date with WWE. Here's where WWE flexed its muscle. I am of the belief that originally John Cena was not going to turn at Elimination Chamber, and he was going to turn at WrestleMania. As a result of that, the entire timeline of what they were going to do with the John Cena storyline was pushed back. I suspect Jeff Cobb is going to be a heavy for John Cena and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, given the Hawaiian connection with Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Jeff Cobb. Jeff is from Guam, but there's a certain island boy mentality that there's a connection there.
Yeah.
So had the turn happened at WrestleMania, you know, Cobb could have finished his date, and then Backlash or whatever, May or June, he could have come in and been the stopper for Cody to get his title right back from Cena in some opportunity. Given WWE predilection, I don't see Jeff Cobb debuting at WrestleMania. I love Jeff Cobb. I think he's great. He's not big enough. That is The Rock is involved at that match, at that level kind of moment. And then Jeff Cobb is probably the surprise on Monday Night Raw the night after as kind of the, you know, brick wall that Cody runs into, if you could imagine. What I would personally love, and I think would be a great spot, is if Bronson Reed came back and Jeff Cobb and Bronson Reed were some kind of natural disaster tag team, just running roughshod over everybody. That would be an excellent use of both of them and just turn them into like destructive monsters. I do not know. But what I do think is that WWE knew for a long time that they were going to need Jeff Cobb for this date, and they waited until the last minute to let them know. And I think that New Japan is being as accommodating as possible, because I think Tanahashi wants that Nakamura match, and there's no reason not to try and angle for that as well, because there's a lot. There's a lot there.
USVA guys here, good to see you, man. He says this gets pretty cool. Get ready for Wrestle Kingdom.
Hello, Esteban. I'm glad you were there to see my chalkboard of theories there. Basically, WWE moved up the timetable because The Rock moved up the timetable.
And Jeremy's asking, is New Japan having to take Khan's money right now to function? Just asking. No. First of all, I don't think they're really taking any of Khan's money. And then the other thing is, actually, business is up since Goto got there. Business is up. The ticket sales have been a little bit better, and it's still a business that is based on ticket and merchandise sales. They don't have the TV contracts WWE does. So the fact that attendance has been up with Goto now, and I don't think they're taking a whole lot of Khan's money. I don't think that's how it's going. So no, I don't think so.
I would call it business transactions when talent exchanges hands or they are working with each other. That's not taking money. That's, you know,
New Japan's not going to go broke. It's just right now the yen is down. Bushi Road as a whole isn't having the best time, but both Stardom and New Japan's attendance is up in 2025.
Right.
And they're Stardom's flat out hot right now. It's on a hot streak. So, and they're going to have a heck of a show in Yokohama, probably the show of the year at the end of the month in Yokohama. Good Lord, this lineup that they're about to have. So they're going to do some strong business. I'm not worried about New Japan financially, and neither should you be. It's just a matter of right now. Remember, yes, the North American companies who are operating the billions of dollars with a B can outbid them for certain talent. Yes, that's just a fact. They can do it. Mayu is probably going to leave because she wants to go back to Rossi, who's somebody who she feels the most comfortable with, and Marigold probably. And Tam wants to retire. There's been rumors about Tamu's retirement for a long time. It sounds like just the time is right for her. And as far as Cobb goes, again, we talked about that as far as being in your 40s. It's not a thing where New Japan is broke and can't pay these guys. It's just that other people seem to want to pay him more. And then Naito maybe just didn't want to work. They just couldn't come to that same agreement. So it's not that they're going broke or anything like that. Really isn't.
The reality is for Jeff Cobb, if you're going to be upper mid card for two companies and one company is paying you a small amount of money and the other company is going to pay you a lot of money, regardless of where you live, you should at least entertain the big money offer, even if it's not in the country where you live anymore.
Yeah. And Fernando mentions New Japan survived without Kenny, Will Ospreay, and Jay White. They will definitely survive this. They survived without Vader when he was their number one guy. Don't underestimate how big Van Vader was. Hulk Hogan was the biggest foreign star they'd ever had at the time he left. And
they don't put all their eggs in one basket with these foreign talents. Yeah. They just don't. And that's why they managed to survive. The Yota Tsuji, the Yuya Uemura, the Ryohei Oiwa, Kosei Fujita, Shota Umino, Ren Narita, all of these guys. That is the true future of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah. And they were headed that way anyway. New Japan knows this. So they know that Tsuji and Narita and Uemura and Oiwa and Fujita, they know these guys are the future. Shota too, in his own way. And they're headed that way. That's what this year has been about. Yeah, Bolton, maybe. Yeah, Bolton. Yeah.
The Drew and Maloney, I don't know if AEW or WWE are going to go after these guys. Clark Connors, they're great, but they're not big. They're not big in the ring, and they're not big in media, but they're solid, and there's going to come a point where they're going to blow up and become huge stars. The talent is there with those guys, but that's the game. It's a matter of time. Once they hit that point, the other people take notice because they can see money being made off of the notoriety.
The other side for Jeff Cobb, I feel like he had kind of maxed out in New Japan in another way, because he had his run where he went almost undefeated in the G1. He had gotten his world title shots, and I think he's always a guy you could plug into a monthly title shot, but just the way his timeline had gone in New Japan, Cobb wasn't going to win a G1 and go to Wrestle Kingdom. He wasn't going to be the top guy at a Dominion and things, because he'd kind of already had that cycle. He had gone through those things with Okada. He had gone through those things a little bit with Tanahashi. So at this stage, it's a good time to leave. He's a guy that you can always put in, and he has credibility. He's wonderful in a G1 because he could beat anyone, right? So if you need to take 2 points off of somebody, it's always credible if Jeff Cobb does it, because Tour of the Islands is over. He hits it on any human being, and you believe that they are pinned. That has a lot of utility. But Cobb wasn't going to be the guy.
Right.
He knew that too, and he could absolutely stay in New Japan and be a regular upper mid-card player, or look, he sees what Tama Tonga is doing. He sees who Tama Tonga is standing next to, and the money Tama Tonga is making by standing next to people. That you got to think that if I'm going to be in an angle that The Rock is backing, I'm going to be in pretty freaking good shape.
There's a certain cachet of being in New Japan Pro Wrestling now in WWE. They reference it. They talk about it. You have legitimate.
People knock WWE, and for good reason. There are flaws.
Sure, it's flaws in every company. It
is the peak of the entire industry. And if you main event WrestleMania, there is no spot in pro wrestling that is higher than that. Mm-hmm. There isn't one. That's it. That's the list. That's the end game. And I, like people just say, well, you do this and then what? Who cares? That's the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate. That is the one
You talk
thing.
about going into Hollywood when you're done being at the top of WWE.
Yeah.
That's the food chain. Like you graduate out of the entire industry and go into another one.
Yeah. And like people are saying, well, why would Mariah May has been taken care of by AEW? Why would she go to WWE? Because she grew up watching WWE and main eventing and being at WrestleMania is bigger than anything else to a lot of people. Kevin Owens is like that. Kevin Owens is a guy that grew up watching WWE in Montreal, and they say, well, why hasn't he left? I hear that all the time. Why hasn't he left? He doesn't want to. He sees anything else as a demotion. So, Cobb to get that chance and to be in an angle, and if you're right, Jeremy, to be in an angle where that The Rock and The Rock's writers are behind it, like you're not going to get shuffled to the back of the pack.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The Cobb trajectory was going down.
Yeah.
He was no longer going to be the guy that like this monster because the monster had been beaten one too many times.
Yeah.
To be the world, like this match with Goto that he was supposed to have. There was not a single person that thought, oh yeah, Jeff Cobb was beating Goto. Right? Like you didn't see it, even though it's like, oh, that's a cool match. But Jeff Cobb was not at that level.
Yeah.
And it's okay that he's not at that level. A fresh start with a new audience that knows of Jeff Cobb. But the first time they see that Tour of the Islands, the first time they see that look, in addition to that agility and athletic ability, he's going to do great. And he deserves to do great. Fernando Zayas asking, can you see Gabe Kidd leaving also? Not this year. I think next January you need to clench your butthole a little bit if you're invested in Gabe Kidd. He's worth New Japan spending the money for. Yeah. If they can put a money figure in front of him that makes it so that he wants to stay, that man will absolutely stay, because I believe that the effort and loyalty put into him is something that he feels very strongly about. The Lion Mark has been with him through some very difficult periods of his time. And so I am going to maybe erroneously assume that loyalty will do wonders for him, but he's not going to be there forever. He just won't. Like Gabe Kidd is going to be a star, and the amount of money, somebody one day is going to come up to him and say, how much do you want? And he will not be able to say no.
A USVA guy. Sad part is WWE has a tendency to reference New Japan more than AEW in all forms, and it's certainly more organized. It's certainly more organized than the way, but everything's more organized in AEW right now. So,
like the clout that WWE can chase off of the New Japan aura, I'm glad they do it, because I wish that AEW would. You know, like they do the video package, they have all the opportunity. I saw Tomohiro Ishii come out on the ramp last night at the end of the main event last night. I'm like, oh, cool, Tomohiro Ishii. And it just felt like he was just a guy. And I want more from that when I see my New Japan guys on AEW. But when WWE mentioned these guys, you feel like, oh, I wonder what it was like to watch those guys in New Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is an interesting contrast, isn't it? So anyway, all kinds of stuff behind the scenes. We're going to see how it plays out. So Cobb's final match with New Japan is this Korakuen Hall show that will air in Friday evening in the United States, and then Saturday morning for the rest of you. And I know, Colin, that's going to be an early wake-up call for you. If you decide to do it, maybe you can just catch it on demand afterwards there. That's
so we went about 50 minutes. Yeah. And my final takeaway on this is everything is okay. New Japan will be fine. I wish nothing but the best for Naito, Bushi, and Jeff Cobb. I think that they will all achieve success in what they are attempting to do outside of New Japan. And I am glad that they will accomplish everything that they did in New Japan while they were there. Handshake deal, nothing but the best.
Yeah. All right. So with that, should we get to some in-ring stuff and talk about Windy City Riot?
Do you want to talk about that show that happened a week ago that feels like 2 months ago at this point?
My goodness, doesn't it? I mean, I guess that's kind of my point. When I was putting together the format for this one, just for myself and my own notes, I was just that just feels like absolutely forever ago. But
the
it
entire
wasn't.
first half of the show was just this black and white line mark.
Oh my gosh, yeah. 4,520 in Chicago, by the way. Strong crowd for Windy City Riot. And we did have some interesting things come out of it. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about that. And please, if you have any more thoughts about Naito, Cobb, anything, the Stardom stuff, because Stardom's going to be interwoven with this stuff, put them in the comments. We'll talk about it. If you have any other questions, we're not totally moving on, but we do want to get to what happened at Windy City Riot. And do you want to just begin from the bottom and work toward the main event?
Yeah, I somehow lost the first two images on the
okay.
stage, so whatever.
It's fine. So it all opened with somebody that might end up, who knows, being a player in the future. So Zane J beat CJ Tino in the Strong Survivors match, and then he got on the microphone and relinquished the spot. It's not really a title, is it? It's just kind of a spot. But he said he was going to train full time at the Noge Dojo in Japan. Now they mentioned last time that Zane was going to visit the Noge Dojo, but apparently he must have done enough to impress them that they're going to bring him over there full time. And so he's going to go over there and do that. And next show, Resurgence, the next Strong show, we'll get a new Strong Survivor King of the Hill title. But that can only mean good things for Zane. They must be pretty impressed with the guy to invite him over there like that, and they seem to like him.
What a rib, right? Like, who's the guy that had the title at the Strong Survivor?
Vandegrift?
Matt Vandegrift. This guy does like 10 matches. He's like, yeah, I'm a Strong Survivor. I beat like 10 guys. This Zane J guy beats one guy and he's like, peace, I'm out. I'm going to Japan. And I'm just like, there are no rules for this thing. I expect CJ Tino to have like 2 matches and then just move on to the next guy. And like, it's all fast and loose with this thing. I think Zane Jane has a lot of talent. I am excited for him to go to New Japan. But you could have knocked me over with a feather when I saw the end of this match. Like, I am relinquishing it. I just beat this guy. Now I'm going to Japan to become a young lion there. I'm like, okay.
Well, that's the thing, that they didn't beat him. They didn't even beat him to say, oh, we have a new Strong Survivor. And they don't want us to see Zane lose. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, it might not end up mattering, but I think for now they just yeah. And so let's see. Next up, we had TJP and Tom Lawler. Okay, Venkin, I see that comment. We're going to get to it when we get to that match. Yeah, it's interesting. CJP defeats Tom Lawler, and that was the first match on the show. Mamba Splash, not a whole lot to it. TJP had other things to do later. And I noticed this. I don't know if you did, Jeremy, but Tom Lawler was back up that aisle really quickly, like Matt Riddle quickly back up that aisle after losing to TJP. He pretty much got pinned, rolled out, walked out. And that was there was not much to it after that. He was out of there.
It felt like he was doing something contractually obligated, but wasn't really into what he was doing with the entirety of the vibe of that entire match.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It was fine. Tom Lawler is, I feel like the injuries have caught up to him a little bit more and more. And I don't know how much he's going to be used going forward, which is a shame in New Japan Pro Wrestling, because there was a period there where it felt like they really could do something with him when he went to the G1 in like 2021 and had his opportunity there, and they didn't really capitalize it. And I feel like we saw a different Tom Lawler from New Japan ever since then, where it's just like, oh, I see how it is kind of thing. And it bugged me out because I feel like they had a guy with him that was ready to give them everything he had. And he was giving them everything he had. And they just didn't see the value of sustaining that. And, you know, you guys have guys like Chase Owens and stuff where you're like, well, yeah, but they're loyal. I'm like, well, this guy's loyal too. You know, like this guy's incredibly loyal. And, you know, it's 2025 and he's, you know, losing to TJP in one of the lower matches on the domestic card. Like, this is one where I just feel like he kind of deserves better.
After that, we did have the NJPW Strong Women's Title #1 contenders match. This was Azumi and Mina Shirakawa, and it was good. They're smooth together. They worked together, I don't know, who knows how many times in the Stardom ring. Good match. Went to a double count out, which was the I wondered, like, who are they going to put over in this thing? Well, they just decided, well, we'll just do a three-way Resurgence. After all, this is the season of the three-way match. And they'll do that when it Resurgence. Mercedes will wrestle both of them. So I guess we didn't need to do this one, although it was fun to watch while it was happening. So, yeah, double count out, kind of a silly, lame version of a finish on that. And then they just said, well, we didn't need to do this at all. We'll just have Mercedes wrestle both of these women. So there you have it. It was not the most creative thing in the world.
I really liked this match. I thought, like, wow, we're getting the Azumi and Mina in this match. This is going to be great. You know, there's a reason why each one of them could win or lose this match, given the politics of leaving Stardom, blah, 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 blah. I thought it was such a huge misread by New Japan to have probably the most authentic Stardom singles women match you've ever had on a New Japan domestic America card, and then do a double count out. Like, there were people that were legitimately excited about the fact that they were getting a one-on-one Stardom match in America on a New Japan card between two legitimate, like, Stardom talents. And then you did a double count out. And I was just like, you had an opportunity here and you sacrificed it because you wanted to do the three-way at Resurgence. And sure, fine, whatever. But there were people here for the show tonight, and there were other matches on this card that really delivered. But sometimes you just need to have a winner in a women's match.
Yeah, and we've seen Azumi and Mercedes in a three-way match before with Hazuki. I mean, it really isn't doing anything particularly new. And Venkin mentions, I made a certain comment during Power Bombshells. I said, is Mercedes purposely facing Azumi in triple threats to avoid WWE noticing? I don't think that would work. And the reason I mentioned that is I don't think Paul Levesque is watching everything because I don't think he has time to. I think he's got plenty on his plate. But WWE figured out that Stephanie Vaquer was special. WWE figured out that Julia was special. They have people that keep their eye on this stuff, and they know who these people are. So I don't think there's a way to hide Sorry, go ahead. No, I'm just saying that if WWE decides to scout Stardom, there are people within the organization that can do that and go to whoever needs to hear it and say, hey, remember where we got Julia? There's a woman named Azumi right there that we should take a look at. That would happen anyway. I don't think hiding anybody in a three-way match would be effective. That's my thought on that.
This isn't like the Confederacy and the Union where nobody on either side talks to each other. Like, there are people at all levels of WWE and AEW that are just telling each other stuff. You know, like the Radar Stephanie Vaquer, like the minute she was wrestling on that ring, the secret was out. You know, like there, you didn't need somebody to come tell Triple H, oh, hey, this Stephanie Vaquer person is really good. We all have eyes. And, you know, like it was the night that, you know, Mercedes broke her ankle that Stephanie first made it on the main stage, right? Like that was that four-way tournament that Willow eventually won that we first saw an inkling because it was Mercedes and Stephanie in the first round.
Yeah, well, I mean, but again, if you watch CMLL, you knew that Vaquer was better than
right. But I wasn't watching CMLL. The majority of people at the time weren't watching CMLL. If you like turned on any type of like wrestling in North America, it was the first time anyone ever saw Stephanie Vaquer, and it was like the secret was out the minute you saw that match. You're like, oh, she's good, and she's only going to get better. And then within a year, you know, she's on AEW Forbidden Door, wrestling Mercedes, or a year and a half later, whatever it was, like wrestling Mercedes and running back the match that she already had that nobody saw in the first place. And everyone's like, oh, how did WWE find out about these people? Like, they're running $1 billion wrestling business. They knew. They know. They know about everybody. They've got dossiers on everybody in every company. You know,
they're like anything else. You scout talent, and I'm not saying that Paul Levesque is sitting there watching all this stuff. There are people who work for Paul who watch this stuff. All you need is a subscription. So NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team title match was next. The World Class Wrecking Crew, Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs against the Intergalactic Jet Setters. And, the Wrecking Crew have really good heel swagger when they wrestle. I like that. That was the note I made out there. These guys just have good heel swagger to them.
They have good chemistry with each other, too.
TJP was sitting ringside eating a bag of Dunkin' Donuts for reasons known only to himself. They used the Dunkin' bag as a distraction to set up the finish. This could have been better. And
TJP could have done something better?
No, it was the Wrecking Crew. They did their finish was to use a Dunkin' Donuts bag. That wasn't the finish. It led to the finish. Blah blah. Point being, that was the distraction they used. It was very Shawn Michaels-esque, where every single match leads to somebody standing at ringside and distracting someone. No one can focus. Everybody just like NXT is all people that are as ADHD as Shawn is. They can't focus on one thing at a time. And so this is a very Shawn Michaels-y finish. As far as I can
verify, I had to watch NXT the last 3 episodes because I'm reviewing it tomorrow.
Should have been rough.
On the Fight Game podcast, it's like Archie Comics wrestling.
Yeah, a lot about it. Anyway, but getting back to this, the Wrecking Crew won. We knew that because we figured that was going to happen. We didn't think Knight and Kushida were going to win this one. Knight looked as impressive as he always does. This guy's just a brilliant athlete. Kushida is a good technical worker. The match wasn't bad. I've seen better out of all these guys, and the finish was a little silly. Afterwards, there was no direct challenge by TJP out in front of the crowd, but you knew that was coming, that TJP was going to challenge him. And indeed, the other United Empire member that's going to team with TJP, Templario, and that is coming up at Resurgence. So there you have it, station to station.
Exactly why did TJP have to sit and watch the entire match rather than come out at the very end like a normal person to say, like, hey, we want next?
I don't know. Like
TJP
I said,
has main character syndrome.
Wasn't their best work. Well, TJP didn't demand that they, that's on New Japan to decide if he does that or not. It's not like that was his. It's not like he's booking the territory.
He's not even. He just seems to be front and center, and I don't get why.
After that, we had the NJPW Strong Openweight title match. It was a 30-minute Iron Man match. Tomohiro Ishii and Gabe Kidd. I'm gonna be the class grump here. I was not impressed with this match. So I thought Ishii is getting into this thing that happens to all workers when they stay in the United States a while. I'm not even talking about Japanese wrestlers. I'm talking about all of them. They boil their act down. And right now, watch an Ishii match from before he started going to AEW to now, he did so many more things, different things in his matches 5 years ago. And now it is just these ceaseless chop battles. Yeah. And forearm, which is stupid. And it's way overused in wrestling now. Everyone, my God, I would kill to go through one wrestling show without 3. I'm just asking for fewer than 3 of this time when these guys stand in the middle of the ring and I'll let you hit me and then I'll hit you. Crap, it's stupid. And it's way, way, way overused. And this was endless in this one because they knew they had to go 30. So they just did this so long.
30 plus.
And I wrote down, there's a fight forever chant. So it was getting over with the live crowd. The live crowd loved this. And I said, there was a fight forever chant. I feel like it's already been forever for me. So it's just felt very, very repetitive and very, very concentrated. Like we're just getting these 3 or 4 things now. Kid hit a power bomb for 3 to take the first fall. Ishii got an arm breaker as time was running out. There was a brain buster into an inside cradle. That was a dramatic near fall. I thought that was going to be a fall. I thought that was really good. But to no one's surprise, it went overtime.
No.
1-1. Here we go into overtime. Luckily, it didn't go far into overtime here. And in the end, he got the Kid up for the brain buster. The live crowd loved it. No question about it. The live crowd loved it. And it was good, but only just kind of good. I wouldn't even say pretty good. These guys are capable.
The audience elevated it.
Yeah, and they were into it, and they liked hearing the impact. And live, that stuff is better than on TV.
Sure.
But yeah, I've seen these guys do better than this too. I felt this way about the tag team title match. I felt this way about this match, is that I've seen these guys do a lot better. The main thing is Gabe Kidd is onto other things, that he doesn't need that belt anymore. And
he's got to be in the world title picture, and him having the strong title makes it look like he's holding the European title. And it's like, you don't take him seriously as a world title contender if he's holding a lower card belt.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. It's the same reason why you took the belt off of Hiromu. You know, it's like he's going to the best of the Super Juniors. It's going to look weird if he's got a heavyweight tag title belt and then this guy pins him in the Super Juniors, and then he doesn't even have like a heavyweight partner. And now we know Naito's not even around. So like he doesn't even have a tag title partner to go. Anyways. This match. I was there in San Jose live to watch the first version of this match. And for the first 25 minutes, I felt like I was watching the same match. You know, like they were just going back and doing the same beats. And what I noticed more than anything else is the transition of 3 months later, because that San Jose crowd didn't react to Gabe Kidd the way that the Chicago crowd reacted to him tonight. You know, like there was heel babyface, these two guys are stars, we can't believe we're watching this match. There was a little bit of that, but Gabe Kidd was not swimming in the aura of this Kenny Omega match to the level that he was at this time. And so that definitely played a part into it, because you didn't feel like you were watching two stars. But they got everybody into it by the end of the match. And it was a very good match going Broadway. This one was really good too. I am with you that it wasn't like this opus that everyone's like, oh, wow, this is a great Iron Man match. It was a means to an end. It was a backbone and linchpin to the entire evening. It was this and the main event that basically sent everybody home happy and had the two matches. Like, you got two matches that people will remember for a long time. You got a great show. And you're going to remember this as being a great show because of this match. But there's a reality of like, it wasn't as good as you want it to be. But if you liked it a lot, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong.
All right. After that, then Ishii is on to things too. He's got Drilla Maloney at the next one. We're going to go over the lineup for Resurgence at the very end here. But yeah, he's going to have Drilla Maloney. So he's gotten past one part of the War Dogs. Now he has to deal with another. After that, we had
funny that we have a New Japan Cup rematch. I wonder who's going to win that one.
LIJ and Tetsuya Naito and Titan against El Fantasmo and Rocky Romero. This was a match that happened. Titan won with a double stomp, and there wasn't.
Feels more important in hindsight, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah. Well, you know, Naito will be back around, but in the United States, I don't think it's his last match in the U.S. But it was yeah.
He's going to wrestle that much in the U.S.?
No, not that much, but I think he will.
All right.
I mean, someone will bring him. Like I said, if he's actually going freelance, then he'll probably appear at a WrestleMania weekend show for somebody, the way Suzuki does. Like, I can see something like that. I think if he goes freelance like that, he'll show up in the U.S. Yeah, I think so. Singles match: Zack Sabre
all the time.
Zack Sabre Jr. and David Finlay. This was an interesting one to me because, first of all, it was good. It was a good match, of course, between these two, but wrestled differently than we normally see David Finlay, and I think it is a harbinger of what is coming. Normally, David Finlay takes the vast majority of the first 10 minutes of his matches because he's doing the whole heel thing. We've talked about how smart he is about his timing, in that he will let a moment sink in, and he'll let a bump sink in, and he will walk around the ring and look at the crowd, not necessarily shout and look at, but just kind of get, and he'll trash talk his opponent, and he lets those blows sink in. And a lot of a Finlay match is him healing while the guy is taking his ass whooping, right? Zach took most of the early part of this one, complete opposite of this one. This was Zach really kind of turning him into a pretzel. And of course, got more competitive as the match went on. It went about 15 minutes, by the way. But in the end, it was fairly decisive. They got into a pin scramble. Both of them managed to go in and out of that, and they're both really good at that. So that was fun. And then they started trying to hit their finishers, whether it was Oblivion or the Zack Driver. And then finally, Zack hit the Zack Driver and pinned him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to give him 3 of them. It was fairly decisive victory for Zach. And what it felt like to me, Jeremy, is that this is kind of the last gasp of the heel Finlay as he kind of is defeated and he puts over Zach so that he can then go into this House of Torture feud as the babyface. Right. And this felt like it was the end of something and the start of something else. Like he needed to get this out of the way so that he could go into his fight with Evil as the babyface in it. That's the way this match felt to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was definitely wrestled differently than their semifinal match for the New Japan Cup, where, you know, it was a lot more vicious and physical, I want to say, between the two of them, with that kind of flash overkill ending that they had. This one definitely wasn't wrestled that way. It was also shorter. It was really like a 15-minute match.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a couple other matches on that card, you know, chomped up the time a little bit. So paced differently, enjoyable, definitely going down a different path. I would not be surprised if Zack Sabre Jr. became a heel, and the next time these two face, the configurations were a little bit different.
Could very well be. And after that, we did have the world title match, the IWGP World Heavyweight Title match, Hiroki Goto and Shota Umino. This one went 20 minutes, and it was fine. And here's what I mean by that. It was fine. It needs to be more than fine in this situation.
Yes.
And as hard as I have been rooting for Shota Umino, and I've been in his camp, I have been supportive of Umino, I have to admit, and this isn't the first time I've admitted it, but I have to admit that it's just not quite there as a babyface as things stand. And the finish of this one was a GTR after a Shoten Kai. Once again, Shota Umino shoots a shot and loses and fails. I do think he needs a big change. I think he needs that heel turn. I also think that's kind of where this is headed. I still think that he's headed toward a heel turn. A little too much, a little too into Hantai. He doth protest too much in that way. I feel like he's gone.
Definitely not leading Hantai now.
Definitely not. But the talent to me is there with Shota. The connection with the crowd is not. And it's undeniable here that this match, he did not connect as anyone you would really want to root for. I'm rooting for the guy. I like the guy a lot. I think he's a talented dude, but I don't think that I think he needs that big character change, that heel turn. He needs to be the jerk. It needs to happen because how many times do we need to see him step up, fail, step up, fail, step up, fail? It's time now. This is time to pull the trigger here fairly soon. I'm not saying they have to do it tomorrow at Korakuen, but the next big moment for him needs to be changing from what he's been doing. We've seen this. We got this. He is earnest and eager. He gets there and he falls short. We got it, New Japan. We're good. We see this. It's time for something other than this.
So, do you think that just turning him heel is the way to go?
Yeah, I think that eventually he needs to do that. He needs to swing that pendulum. I don't think he's ever going to get there as a babyface. Even if you start putting him over, I think the fans would resent it if he started beating people now. I think it would go the wrong way. It's almost like a Naito situation where he has to turn in order to do it. I don't see him getting over as a babyface without a turn between there. I just don't. I don't see that connection just happening because how would you do it? That he starts winning matches? That he saves someone from a beatdown?
I have a follow-up question for you off of that. And that is, there are a number of things going on in New Japan right now with factions and issues and, you know, discontentment between people and all these things. Is the Shota story the top priority for New Japan in terms of what stories they're trying to tell right now? Is there something that is going to break as a story or an angle that is going to break before the Shota thing?
No, I think that they are clearly getting behind Tsuji quite a bit.
I'm talking like War Dogs, Bullet Club, House of Torture.
Yeah,
is that going to break before this? Is Shota involved? Do you think with that? Do you think that the Hontai fracturing?
I also don't think it's
happen at the same time.
Again, you're talking about new factions coming up, right? I think Shota should be at the forefront of one of those. They need something as a heel group other than House of Torture,
right?
Because that's the other thing is there's just not a ton of heat up and down. There are matchups you're excited about. Now you're excited to see this guy wrestle that guy, and this should be a good match. But there's not a ton of babyface heel heat left in the company. Yeah, he needs to be someone people root against so that can swing back the other direction later.
There is no main event, natural, legitimate heel in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. Evil is not it. Evil is fantastic, but he's almost like a Jeff Cobb, where there's a certain level he's reached and he's not going to be past that level. He's had his world title run. You could force it on him, but the amount of reaction that you'd have to Evil winning the world title right now is almost counterintuitive to what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. You need somebody new, one of the young guys, to like rise into that role, like basically grow into Randy Orton as the most despicable world champion in WWE in 2009 kind of energy. That is what you need, and it has to be one of the young guys. And I kind of think Shota Umino is that guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it just needs to be separate from the House of Torture thing. There should be more than one heel group. I mean, for God's sakes. And they had at one time LIJ was an absolute heel group. Bullet Club were true heels for a while. Certainly the Jay White Bullet Club, you rooted against them. And Suzuki-gun coexisted with them at the same time, and you rooted against those guys. Right now, it's House of Torture and then a bunch of guys the fans like. And that's fine, because when you see them wrestle each other, there's you're looking forward to seeing the wrestling matches, but it doesn't have the whole crowd behind something willing something to happen. You don't get that because you get half the people like, well, I don't want to see him lose either. It's tricky. So, and Jeremy just has thoughts on Yuya. Well, we're high on Yuya Uemura, but he's not ripe yet. He's on the way.
They're clearly not behind him at that level because he's still navigating matches with Sanada.
Yeah, and it's a slow burn. It always is with New Japan. Not always. They very rarely just strap a rocket to somebody. Very rarely. It's happened, but they very rarely do it. It's usually a much longer climb up. But
like a lot of people wanted Yota to beat Sanada when he debuted back when Sanada had the title. I still think they made the right call by not doing it, but there are people that are argued to this day that, strap the rocket to Yota, do the Okada with him.
Yeah, no, so I mean, I think Yuya is going to have his time, and I think Oiwa could actually be a hell of a babyface. But you're right; they need somebody for the crowd to root against. They just really do. There just aren't that many, and people still don't really take House of Torture that seriously. There's been so much silliness with House of Torture that it's hard to just get really pissed at them. Right. And that's what they need. They need someone the fans.
You roll your eyes at House of Torture. You don't get angry at them.
Yeah, not the way you did with Jay White when he was the most effective heel in the business for a while there. That's a good example of one. They really need something like that. Event. Well, we had Takeshita and Tanahashi, and we supposed that going into this one, his best kinship match had clearly been against Shingo Takagi, and it wasn't particularly close. We thought that this one had a real chance, if anyone did, of being the one to eclipse that, and it absolutely did. Takeshita is just on another level right now as far as star power when he stands in the ring. Work level, he got a terrific match here out of Hiroshi Tanahashi. And 20 minutes, it did not feel like 20 minutes. It felt like it was half that time because things just kept moving. Takeshita did a lot of the moving himself, but Tanahashi was energized by it. Takeshita did a lot of bouncing off him, but that was the right way to play this thing, and he knows how to do it. Tanahashi, the finish came later on when Tanahashi kept kicking out of running knees, and even that in its own became a storyline as this match went on, and Tanahashi hit his signature stuff. He got the sling blade, kind of. You can't really do the sling blade anymore, but he gets something that kind of looks like a sling blade. He did Aces High. Walker, when the guy's standing, it's Aces High. It's high fly flow when he's on the mat. Come on, you've been here a year and a half. You can get this. Stay with it, buddy. You'll get the names of these moves, these pesky wrestling moves down someday. And so he jumps off, knees up on the high fly flow, and that stopped the momentum. And then after that, it was kind of like Takeshita always being a step ahead of him, but not being able to finish this guy off. Tanahashi was Tanahashi-esque in that resilience thing, that baby face resilience, the never quit, always get that shoulder up at the last instant. There were several running knees that led to that, and Takeshita was getting more and more flummoxed by the whole thing until he finally hit Raging Fire to get the victory. 20 minutes of terrific stuff here, Jeremy. I love this, and it was better than the Shingo match. Shingo did a hell of a job. This was better than that. It might end up being the best match on this whole retirement tour for Tanahashi. This is going to be tough to beat.
Sent the fans home happy on our Windy City show, right? I was actually a little surprised that this main evented the show. It was the right call.
Yeah. They knew what they were doing, isn't it? But when I saw, I felt the same way. That when this was lined up as last, I just thought, boy, they do have faith in this, and they should have. They were correct.
It would have been hard for Shota and Goto to live up to that, but I also somewhat suspect that it might be a storyline thing for Shota, where they're like, you could eventually have a feud with Takeshita or Tanahashi again in this like final run up, and he can talk about this. He's like, I had a world title match and I was second to you. You know what I mean? Like that kind of energy. And I like that. I like that they're doing little things like this, his grievances, so that when he hopefully turns heel, like you look at him like, yeah, he's kind of talking a little bit of truth there, because the best heels tell the truth from a certain point of view. So I thought this match was fantastic. I thought the post match was fantastic. I thought just Takeshita is him, and when Tanahashi, he's not able to do it every night, but he is exceeding my expectations so far on this final road.
And then afterwards, we had the farewell. A lot of the baby faces came out with Tanahashi afterwards, kind of surrounded the ring for Tanahashi's speech. ELP stared down Takeshita a little bit to set up the next stage for the never open weight title there. So ELP stared him down. But yeah, he just put over a lot of the guys around the ring. Tanahashi did, said a few kind words to the crowd. You could tell that he was a little bit emotional, and certainly the crowd in Chicago very much into the idea of sending Tanahashi off on a high note with their farewell to him. The Tanahashi chants, a lot of respect showing. Not very many people left. Normally you get people heading for the exits, and certainly some did, but a lot of people wanted to stick around. And then afterwards, it looked like Tanahashi didn't want to leave. He walked all the way around the ring and took every selfie, signed every photo, and toweled himself off with every available towel all the way out. It was a pretty nice moment, I thought, Jeremy, and one worthy
if anyone wants to clone Tanahashi, they now can.
It was worthy of the moment, and that match was worthy of the moment, and it all kind of came together in a real nice package at the end of the Windy City Riot. Very satisfying ending to what was a pretty satisfying show.
Worth $20 to me. How about you?
Yeah, and I don't always feel that way about these. I don't always feel this way about these, but this one I was glad I did.
I had to watch it in two parts. We were going to do a show after the thing, but life got in the way. We weren't able to do it. I'll tell you what, I didn't make it. As soon as Naito came out and did a little shtick where ELP fell asleep on the mat of the wrestling ring while Naito was coming out, I was like, you know what? That's great. I think I'm going to go to bed. And I actually stopped it right there, and I picked it up the next day, and I was much happier that I was able to watch it on a fresh set of eyes and mind on that one. But yeah, good show. We got about 2,000 matches and about 10 minutes to announce them.
Yeah, no.
Are there any comments or anything that we want to get in before we
I haven't seen anything new from the crowd. I do want to talk about what's coming up this week. We mentioned that show at Cork and Hall several times now. That's the only thing that is going to be on NJPW World. That's the only thing going to be broadcast. There are some other house shows. So, and the main point of this is Cobb versus Tanahashi, and then it's a bunch of previews. That's what's really going on at Korakuen. There are house shows Monday and Tuesday in Osaka. That's at the small gym within the Edion Arena, that Prefectural Gymnasium number 2, I believe is what it's called. Those will not be on NJPW World as it stands right now. And then Wednesday, there will be an Ehime. And then we're back here on Thursday to talk about what we saw at Korakuen and look forward. Other things, big matches coming up. Heizen no Kuni, that is going to be in Saga on April the 29th. We have a couple matches announced for that. That's going to be Tuesday. Heizen no Kuni, there we will have El Phantasmo and Great Khan in a rematch for the television title. The junior tag team titles will be on the line as Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles are challenged by Yo and Master Wato. That's happening in Saga at Heizen no Kuni. And then once again, the juniors are going to have their own show going with the TV title. The junior heavyweight title will be on the line, Desperado and Templario, and what should be a really good match there. After that, we have Dontaku. We're getting to Golden Week, which is a whole week of holidays in Japan. So Dontaku, May 3rd. That's a 2-night event in Fukuoka, 3rd and 4th. That's a Saturday and a Sunday, Dontaku. On May 3rd, that Saturday, it'll be Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr. So that should be good. That's a perfect opponent for Zack. Shota Umino and Shingo Takagi. That'll be an interesting special singles match. And then that is the one that is headlined by, best of luck to everybody, the Dog Pound Cage match with the War Dogs against House of Torture. They're going to try to do that one again after a very memorable match from New Beginning last year. They're going to try to do it with House of Torture. So, boy, if
you got any guesses on Takeshita's secret guest partner?
No, I don't, by the way. And that's coming up on May 4th on Sunday. I'm not sure. I'm curious.
3rd and 4th, both days.
Once again, May 4th, a show I'm not going to be able to watch until I'm in Tokyo. I am going to be flying. I will be in the air while this is happening. We are on our way to Japan that day. There will be a Stardom Showcase match. Participants yet to be announced. Takeshita and X versus Bolton and ELP. No idea. Could be a DDT guy. Could be. And then
it's Ghetto the first night on the night before instead of Bolton Oleg. So I imagine whoever's doing it is probably submitting Ghetto. It makes me think it's probably a smaller guy.
Could be. And then we have Naito's final match in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It'll be Naito, Shingo, Hiromu, and Bushi. And you got to wonder about Hiromu's future after all this as well, but that's not up for a while. Naito, Shingo, Hiromu, and Bushi. Again, Naito and Bushi, final matches in New Japan, which means, by the way, if this is the end for Bushi, we need a new guy for the Super Juniors, don't we? Isn't he in it?
Oh, yeah. I think maybe Teton.
Yeah, could be if they can get him. Taka Michinoku, Taichi, Tomohiro Ishii, and Shota Umino. So here's that Just for Guys Hantai collaboration. Now they're on the same side of a multi-person tag. So it'll be Taka, Taichi, Ishii, and Umino facing Hiromu. Naito and Bushi in their final runs there. Global title will be on the line, and that'll be Yota Tsuji defending against Yuya Uemura. So that goes back to their G1 injury match there where Uemura got hurt. They're going to go again. And then after that, we will have the World Heavyweight title match, Hiroki Goto against Callum Newman. That'll be Dontaku on May the 4th.
Somehow we skipped right past it, but did you take anything away from that whole Rocky Romero ELP kind of pissing contest?
I'd imagine Rocky might turn on him at some point, but I can't say I'm too worried about it. How about that?
Feels like fracturing within this giant Hontai faction, you know?
Well, yeah, that's about to happen.
That's probably the story there. All right, what else we got?
Resurgence on May 9th. That's going to be in Ontario, California. That was one thing we didn't mention is we had to suffer through a video from Huey and Dewey Jackson saying that they were coming in, unfortunately.
Have you put together who might be their partner?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I know who it's going to freaking be.
Gross.
Yeah, I know. Resurgence on May 9th. We will have CJ Tino and Alan Breeze. They'll create a new Strong Survivor. We'll have Fred Rosser and Matt Vandegrift. We don't have the whole card yet. This is what we got so far. We will have the War Dogs versus Huey and Dewey, and what we figure are the Good Brothers. That would be Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, just to make sure that we are stuck 10 years ago, because God knows Huey and Dewey have not changed a bit in 10 years and do the exact same act and bore us to everybody to tears and are driving off AEW audiences. But we're only a few minutes away from their home, and I guess there's just no avoiding this. But hopefully it'll be fast.
Club. You
can't wait to see that.
And he appears.
Oh my God! Can you imagine the War Dogs having to sell that dinky little double knee they do? Oh Christ! Anyway, I don't even want to think about this. Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs defending against TJP and Templario. That's going to be the open weight tag team titles. And then, Templario's great. And then Ishii will face Drill Maloney for the strong openweight title. We mentioned that he beat Gabe, so now he's got to take on Gabe's main partner. And then after that, we will have Takeshita and ELP for the never openweight title. And that we also have Mercedes Moné defending the strong women's title against Azumi and Mina Shirakawa. That's what we have for that show so far. I'd imagine there will probably
Maloney.
be more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what we know so far about Resurgence. Like I said, all of this, almost all of what we just said, almost all of it has been announced since we were last doing a show a week ago. It has been a crazy week
Good
for
time.
that. But I think we've got you all caught up. So if you've been listening and you can keep track of all that, I believe we have you all caught up. And we will be back here next week to summarize anything that happened since. But I need a rest. How about you, Jeremy?
Well, I am going to finish packing. I mean, get on a plane.
Yeah.
I'm going to Las Vegas.
You're not resting at all.
I am going to be on the F4W YouTube page with one Garrett Gonzalez talking all about Naito and Jeff Cobb and AEW Collision and Dynamite and NXT and all these things tomorrow, Saturday, and who knows the next time you're going to see me anywhere podcasting besides next Thursday. But yeah, I'm going to be a busy, busy boy.
Yeah, WrestleMania weekend out there in Vegas. So
I got talked into it, and look at me now, bona fide.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoy your time there. I hope you enjoy whatever you get to see and all that. And for all those of you here watching at home, if you're watching Mania, if you're enjoying any of the other independent shows that pop up around there, some of it's going to be on pay-per-view. I think what Stardom's is on Triller pay-per-view, all that. I hope you enjoy it. When you get a thing like this that I experienced at Wrestle Kingdom in January, you go to Vegas or watch some of the shows from these kind of festivals that pop up around these huge events. It's a really fun time. It's a time to really celebrate this art form, and this weekend's a perfect way to do that. There's just going to be so many different types of wrestling going on in Las Vegas. Pick the stuff that you like. Maybe try something you haven't seen before and see if you like that too. You might open up a whole new field of research for you. Who knows? So, but I hope everybody has a great weekend. It's Easter too, so if you celebrate, enjoy that. And we'll be back here next Thursday. Power Bombshells will be on as usual on Sunday. Don't forget the Dynamite show. Those guys watch, so you don't have to. And then we have
the Rap will be on both nights post WrestleMania.
Yeah, boy, Scott and Kilo, they're as good as you get when it comes to analyzing all this
Scott
stuff.
And Keela on Saturday. I think it might be Keela and Paul Fontaine on Sunday.
There might be some Power Bombshell action on that too. By the way, they might be part of that as well. So. We got it covered. We got it covered on here on Fight Game Media, and we'll be back here at our regular time on Thursday to talk about the Cork and Hall show and any other massive news that pops up between now and then. Jeremy, anything else on your end?
No, thanks for steering a tight ship there, buddy.
All right, and just don't forget to tip the guy at TSA when he pats you down. They appreciate it.
No, I don't like people touching me.
All right. So for Jeremy Finestone, this is Stephen Conway. Thanks for joining us for Speaking in Strong Style. We will talk to you again real soon.